When Jenny arranged this conference, she obviously put a call to our neighbours and said, do you want to come and join the party? And our neighbour is the MP from New Zealand, Jill Pettis. Jill is the current chair of the New Zealand Parliamentary Group on Population and Development, and I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the New Zealanders in that role, and New Zealand has had a strong history in working in the area, particularly in the Pacific, so we look forward to welcoming Jill Pettis.
Thank you, Claire. First of all, I want to pay respects to the first inhabitants of this region, and in the language of the Indigenous people of New Zealand, the Maori people, and I have Maori ancestry as well. Kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. I grabbed the opportunity with both arms. Our relationship, not only between our kindred groups, but the relationship between Australia and New Zealand is a long and strong one, and it's always nice to be able to share a forum with you. I've been asked to talk about Parliamentarians and the Millennium Development Goals, and I'll speak from my own experience as being a member of that group and now the chair, and I'll also speak briefly about some broader initiatives by New Zealand in relation to the themes of this conference. Firstly, I'd like to take a moment to consider what are we really talking about when we talk about population and development. Like many words and phrases, the more they are used, the more they can sometimes become devoid of any real human meaning. And the more technical we get, the more we can move away from the human connection. Let us remember that when we speak about population and development, we are often talking about some of the most central components of everyday life, including family, sexuality, pregnancy, childbirth, communities, and the planet we live on, which is ultimately our home. It is valuable to remember the stories at the centre of our discussions. One of those stories is like this. Angela and Silas are from Vanuatu. For food, they fish and have a garden for vegetables. When they married, they visited the local clinic and chose to plan how many children they would have. Their garden and the daily catch are enough to feed their 3 boys. It also means they have enough land to leave to their children and their future families. That's a real story about a real sort of family. And this is only one example of the stories of millions and millions of people. Equally, let us remember that everybody here is also at the centre of these discussions. We all have a role to play if we decide to take it on, and I suggest the number of you here today have decided to take it on. NZPPD is about taking action, working together, giving it a go as parliamentarians and learning in the process. NZPPD provides a forum for New Zealand parliamentarians to engage and act on international population and development issues, with a particular focus on Asia and the Pacific. NZPPD is a cross-party group with currently 47 members, representing just under 40% of New Zealand MPs, which is not too bad a representation in a parliament of 121 people. The group is an active part of parliamentary life in New Zealand. NZPPD was established in 1998 to further the achievement of the 20-year programme of action developed at the groundbreaking International Conference on Population and Development in 1994. As many of you will know, the ICPD recognised that population and development are closely linked. Empowering women and meeting people's needs for education and health, including reproductive health, are necessary for both individual advancement and balanced development. The Secretariat of NZPPD is housed within the International Development Unit of the Family Planning International of Family Planning New Zealand, and we MPs couldn't function as well or make this committee as effective as it is without the help of the Family Planning International Secretariat, who work very, very closely with us. In addition to saving and improving people's lives, achieving the ICPD Programme of Action, including a focus on sexual and reproductive health, is crucial in order to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. This is at the crux of NZPPD's approach to the MDGs, and we believe a fundamental consideration in the overall attainment of those goals. Clear recognition of this point is the new target agreed by world leaders under MDG 5, which is improve maternal health, to achieve universal access to reproductive health by 2015, a year that is frighteningly close in many respects. Indeed, it is important that this new target be immediately and fully integrated into national development strategies and be given the highest priority by relevant government ministries and other relevant parties. However, beyond this specific new target, it is well evidenced how sexual and reproductive health and rights are connected to the attainment of the MDGs right across the board. Improving sexual and reproductive health is among the most cost-effective of all development investments, reaping personal, social and economic benefits, and we've heard that mentioned a number of times today already. There are fundamental linkages between population, development, poverty, human rights and the economy, and environmental sustainability. It is valuable to focus on choice and the realisation of human rights when we speak of both the ICPD and the MDGs. Key to this is enabling people in their reproductive years to choose the number of children and the spacing of their children. As Thoraya Ahmed Obaid, Executive Director of UNFPA, stated, quote, "When a woman can plan her family, she can plan the rest of her life. When she is healthy, she can be more productive. And when her reproductive rights are promoted and protected, she has freedom to participate more fully and equally in society." People require access to comprehensive quality sexual and reproductive health information and services. Population and development, including sexual and reproductive rights, are an integral part of fundamental human rights. But what role can parliamentarians actually play in all of this? How can parliamentarians connect, engage and make a difference from the debating chambers of our buildings and our electorate offices, and on issues that are so huge, so varied and so very global in their nature and solution? In its 10 years of existence, NZPPD has embarked on numerous and varied activities in an effort to do just this. I'd like to share with you just a little about some of those activities and, more importantly, some of the key things that we have learned. We have learned about the importance of focusing on a critical situation in the Pacific, our nearest neighbours, and an area in which we place a great deal of emphasis. If we look at the population and development situation in the Pacific, firstly, sexual and reproductive health and rights are vital issues to address. There are high rates of sexually transmitted infections and unplanned teenage pregnancy. For example, pregnant women under the age of 25 years in Samoa attending antenatal clinics were found to have a rate of sexually transmitted infections, the chlamydia, of 40%, and in New Zealand we are very worried about rates of 4.7%. In Papua New Guinea, a generalised epidemic of HIV is growing, and there are high rates of maternal mortality. A woman in PNG is 50 times more likely to die in childbirth than in New Zealand, and at the same time there remains inconsistent access to sexual and reproductive health supplies across the region, which was touched on by a question earlier on. Pacific populations, as you well know, are largely youthful. In the Solomon Islands, the median age is 19. Parts of the region are experiencing rapid population increase, which has placed pressure on environmental resources. Population growth in some countries, such as Vanuatu and Kiribati, has led to a situation whereby communities have exceeded the carrying capacity of their land.